Please join me in welcoming the CEO of Lyft, Kirsten Lodal.
So I first had the privilege of meeting Angela Allen. Here's a picture of her. She's an amazing woman and a friend now. 5 years ago. It was soon after she had developed a relationship with Lyft. Can we get Angela up on the screen? And Angela was in tough shape. She had been in the midst of a terrible battle with breast cancer. She was in the midst of a divorce. Her relationship had fallen apart. There she is. She had lost her job because of her grueling treatment schedule, and the home in which she had raised her children was in foreclosure. So in her own words, when I first met her, she was lost and alone. And in fact, she found Lyft because she literally got lost on a walk going through Philadelphia just to try to clear her mind. And she saw our sign and said, I don't know what that is, but I know I need a Lyft. So what we do at Lyft is we partner with people who are on shaky ground, sometimes really, really shaky ground like Angela. And we team them up with a posse of advocates, many of whom are highly trained and dedicated volunteers and AmeriCorps members. And together, our members and their families and our advocates work relentlessly to secure the necessary resources like jobs and housing and education, as well as the confidence and the connections that we all need to get on and stay on stable ground. So fast forward to today, and after many years of collaborative work, Angela's gotten all the medical support that she needs and is cancer-free. She's been able to restructure her mortgage and stay in her house. She's got a full-time job with benefits, doing what she loves, working as a peer specialist at a mental health service in Philadelphia. Last year, she crossed into the black. She's doing higher education courses at Drexel. She just went on her first vacation. I mean, it's an incredible story of transformation. So, so much of the theme of what we do here is trying to figure out what works. So what I spend my days obsessed with is what worked for Angela, right? Well, if you ask Angela, which we've done, not someone in a white lab coat with a clipboard, but Angela, what it was that worked for her, she would say it all started the very first time that she came into the Lyft office and was treated with dignity and respect by a Lyft advocate. And that gave her a huge jolt of confidence. It literally served as an antidote to the toxic stress that had been paralyzing her. And from there, she would say it was the relationships that she made with Lyft advocates who wrapped her in support at a time of profound isolation. And it was the isolation, not some lack of innate gifts, but it was the isolation that was most holding Angela back from doing what she needed to do to be healthy and financially stable. We created an enabling environment to draw out her strengths. We promised to be with her over the long term. But fundamentally, it was Angela who seized her own future, and Angela who continues to do that every day. So I was asked to speak today about the idea that I think could most disrupt the status quo in our work. And what Angela's story tells me is that I think we should listen. I think that we should deeply listen to the people we seek to serve and support and educate and uplift. And we should be willing to change what we do and how we do what we do based on what we hear. We are all in this room doing this work because we care deeply. But, our organizations are very high decibel environments. And we all serve a lot of masters, if we're honest about it, right? And too often, the voice that gets crowded out is the voice of the people who matter most to us. Add to that the fact that we all, especially in this group, feel tremendous pressure, worthy pressure, to get ourselves ready for external evaluations and RCTs. But you can see organizations contorting themselves into these crazy positions that can damage aspects of their work, especially when it comes to prioritizing what it is that their participants say matters to them most. The fact is that how we choose to evaluate what we do changes how we do what we do, period, because it's what we let guide our work. So this is something that we struggled with for years at Lyft. Our work is based on a very simple notion that strong and trusting relationships have the capacity to unlock people's potential. But when it came to what we were measuring, what we were letting guide our work, we were jumping through all the conventional social service hoops, and we were doing well on those standards, but then we looked at and said, well, we're not that impressed with what the conventional social services system is accomplishing, despite its victories, so we felt like something really big was missing. So we decided that as an organization, we had to learn how to systematically listen. And we arrived on a methodology that's basically the love child of participatory development practices and well-established corporate customer service practices. And here's how it works. So we conduct micro-surveys upon every interaction with our members using simple iPad technology, using a rotation of questions that gets at things like relationship quality and service importance. And then every day, we and an outside firm are receiving that data, slicing it across demographics and in other ways, trying to make sense of what it is that the data is telling us. Notably, then, we actually take the data back to our members. We close the loop with them, ask them to help us understand it, ask deeper layers of questions, and then also ask them for ideas for how we could improve our work based on what the data is telling us. And then the most important part, we actually change stuff. So, for instance, if you've noticed my language, it was this process, and especially the closing the loop piece of the process, that convinced us to change our nomenclature from client to member. And that's a difference from portraying someone as needy to portraying them as being a part of something, as having assets and value to bring to the table. So we change stuff, and then we do this process over and over again. And as we've started to be able to triangulate our member feedback data with the objective economic measures that we're tracking around families, income growth, job security, housing security, what we're starting to see is fascinating. So, for instance, we're finding that members with the highest feedback scores, 9s and 10s on Net Promoter, are more than twice as likely to achieve one of their objective economic outcomes than even nearby neutrals. So what does this mean? Well, if we're looking at the 5 of our top 6 indicators of success, personal and relationship factors are driving economic gain. By far, the number one indicator of whether or not our families are going to have success is whether they consistently give 9s or 10s in response to this question. I wrote it down so I get it right. At Lyft, I feel completely free to ask questions and say what I really think. Just think about that, man. At Lyft, I feel completely free to ask questions and to say what I really think. That's what's most indicating that they're going to go kill it on the job interview and secure the job that's going to change the trajectory for their family. So this isn't nice. This is necessary, right? But we got to prove it. And that's why I am so convinced that we all need to take on systematic listening in our work. And the fact is that it is a triple threat for any organization, health and human services, workforce development, education that wants to take this on. It's an evaluation, innovation, and voice tool all in one. So on evaluation, when run alongside the other objective measures that we're collecting, whether they're academic or economic, this gives us a much more complete picture of impact. Very excitingly, if we all do this, the hope is also that we can start to get at predictive indicators, predictive questions that can reliably tell us whether or not we're going to have success with people. So instead of waiting years for the results of a longitudinal study, we could be asking questions now and changing our work to improve our outcomes. On innovation, we get more ideas, we get better ideas, and we get to constantly test those ideas. So that means we do better work. And on voice, if we can admit that every form of evaluation is an intervention that changes how we do what we do, then this is an intervention that supports things like self-determination and agency. Because it tells our members that we value what they have to think and that we will act upon it. For the community members with whom we're working, this is so important. I mean, some social scientists and others who I love, all you social scientists out there, but will always have issues with the bias of perceptual feedback. But the fact is that our data is telling us at every turn, and the corporate world has figured this out, perception is reality for people. And so in our work especially, if we're not paying attention to this, then we're not doing our jobs. It seems crazy that we have to prove some of these simple things. But if we don't want to just scale our individual organizations' work, if we want to change policy, if we really want to change the system, then we have to build a credible, data-driven case for simple truths, like the fact that when we're treated with dignity and respect, we're more likely to succeed. So just imagine if we all took on systematic listening. Just imagine the simple truths that we could prove and someday embed in government practice. Maybe in our field, it would mean that our still so often just terrible, outmoded, monodirectional social service offices would look, feel, and act a lot more like Apple Genius bars. Or, maybe something better. Maybe something that we haven't thought of yet. Maybe something our members, the people that we work with, guide us to. The new census data came out this week, and while we've made a little bit of progress, about 0.5 percentage point on poverty in this country, the fact of the matter is that we live in a time when so many people just feel so profoundly marginalized, disproportionately poor people and people of color, and that people feel left out even of conversations that we're having in this city about mobility and inequality. This is a group of organizations that was selected because you are best in class. You are the leaders. So it would mean so much for this group to affirm in practice, not just in principle, but in practice, that we believe that all people, including poor people, are the ultimate experts in their own lives and deserve to be the chief architects of their future. We believe all of this, and the way that we start to prove that is that we listen. Thank you.